Welcome back everyone, this is going to be my Iron Man Doctor Strange 2 video. Recently, the Marvel writers have been answering questions about bringing the Iron Man character back in the MCU, and explains a lot about how Marvel is going to handle the Iron Man related stories during Marvel Phase 4, because there are a couple of them coming up in all the movies and Disney Plus series. So we'll break it all down. There's a bunch of cool Easter eggs. If you're brand new to the channel, be sure to subscribe to get all the videos. We have Moon Knight episodes starting soon, and I will be doing videos for all those episodes. Those episodes are actually going to overlap with the release of Doctor Strange Multiverse of Madness. But recently, you've probably been seeing a lot of news about Iron Man coming back in the movie in Doctor Strange 2. And not just any Iron Man, an Iron Man variant, or one from another universe, however you want to think about him, played by another actor. There's been reports of a number of different multiverse-based characters from other universes, like from the Fox X-Men movies having cameo scenes, MCU variants of Doctor Strange himself, like we've already seen 3 different versions of Doctor Strange in the trailer already. There's reports about multiple versions of Scarlet Witch, other Avengers characters, so it makes sense that you'd see a lot of news about versions of Iron Man showing up in the film. Like Marvel is using the Doctor Strange Multiverse of Madness movie to take the Loki variants concept to the extreme degree.
Why the hell is there an alligator in here?
He's a Loki!
But just recently, the writers from Spider-Man No Way Home did this big interview, big podcast about the movie, and during it, they talked a lot about the Iron Man character, Tony Stark, Robert Downey Jr., and how Kevin Feige and the other Marvel powers that be, who control everything, are actually approaching the Iron Man character just in general during Marvel Phase 4. They were asked if there's been any talk about bringing a version of Iron Man back in the movies, because there's so many multiverse-based movies coming up, like Spider-Man No Way Home was a multiverse or Spider-Verse movie, Doctor Strange Multiverse of Madness literally has multiverse in the title. So there are so many ways that you could bring a version of Iron Man back, beyond him just being a variant or a version from another universe. But this is the clip of them talking about Iron Man coming back.
Ever any talk about having Iron Man return?
I mean, I think that honestly, that's like a non-starter in the halls of Marvel, at least in our experience. They just don't really like constantly invoking. I mean, obviously, Tony cast such a large shadow even after Endgame, which we dealt with in Far From Home. But I think everyone felt like we can't just keep on going to the Tony well.
So if it wasn't clear, what they mean when they say that Iron Man as a character, just in general, is a non-starter in the halls of Marvel, is that all the writers on the upcoming Marvel Phase 4 movies, all the Disney Plus series, no matter what they are not allowed to use the Iron Man character. The term non-starter means that when someone brings up the name Iron Man or Tony Stark in conversation with Kevin Feige or the other producers talking about bringing him back, it immediately ends the conversation, as in hard pass from Kevin Feige on bringing Iron Man back. And their reasoning, just as they explained during that clip, is that Kevin Feige says they can't keep going back to the Iron Man well, they need to find more creative solutions to dramatic character arcs. And these are the people that wrote Spider-Man No Way Home, and I do agree with them. That movie, for example, did not need Iron Man in it. As they say, Iron Man casts a large shadow over the movie, you kind of feel it. They do reference Stark Industries for the Mysterio drones plot, and when Happy steals Iron Man's fabrication technology and hides it in his apartment so they can use it later. So between that and what they're saying, it's okay to reference Iron Man, Tony Stark, but actually bringing him back for cameo scenes in movies, crossovers, is just a hard pass from Marvel and Kevin Feige. So in related Iron Man news, a lot of you have been asking me about all the Doctor Strange 2 rumors. There were rumors last year, recently, that the movie would feature an alternate universe Iron Man played by Tom Cruise, of all people. If you've seen some of the fan art and you have no idea what's going on, like Tom Cruise, why would he be in a Marvel movie? There is a loose connection between Tom Cruise and the MCU that goes way back to Marvel Phase 1, because before Robert Downey Jr. became Iron Man in the first movie, setting off the MCU in Phase 1, Tom Cruise was actually originally Marvel's first pick for Iron Man. Reportedly, he was the person that they wanted originally when they first started developing the Iron Man project. He wound up dropping out of the movie early on over creative differences with the script. Then Marvel started looking at a bunch of other actors. Sam Rockwell, for instance, who became Justin Hammer, was also initially considered for Iron Man Tony Stark early on, but ultimately they went with Robert Downey Jr., who at the time was considered a huge risk for them. You have to remember, this is way back in 2006, 2007, when they're still developing the movie before they started filming. You probably heard Jon Favreau tell this story before. At the time, Robert Downey Jr.'s career wasn't doing that great. He had all kinds of trouble with the law. He was in the process of cleaning himself up. Jon Favreau pushed for him. They cast him, and the rest was history. It all worked out perfectly for everyone. It could not have worked out better. So in retrospect, I am very glad that we got Robert Downey Jr. instead of Tom Cruise as Iron Man. It would have been a very, very different MCU. But when all this talk of Avengers Variants being in Doctor Strange 2 started, because Kevin Feige back at Comic-Con a couple years ago said that we'd see other versions of Avengers from other universes in the movie, that's probably when you started seeing all the rumors in your timelines about Iron Man Tom Cruise. There's even been a rumor recently that John Krasinski is going to have a cameo scene as an alternate version of Reed Richards of the Fantastic Four, as part of some larger version of the Illuminati during the movie. There have been many rumors about versions of the Illuminati having big cameo scenes, but it would be a multiverse version of the team, so it wouldn't be like the MCU Illuminati. Although technically it is kind of like the Marvel Cinematic Multiverse now, so it is the MCU, but it's kind of not the MCU. Don't worry, when the movie comes out, I'll talk about all those Easter eggs. I'll explain the difference between these multiverse characters and the core MCU characters that originate on the original MCU Earth. It's the same thing when you're talking about the Loki series and all the Loki variants, like who is the main Loki, what's going on with these Lokis from other timelines. I don't know if that John Krasinski, Reed Richards rumor is true. Marvel is working on a new Fantastic Four movie, and if he does cameo in Doctor Strange 2 as a variant of Reed Richards, that effectively confirms that he will not be the main MCU Reed Richards. But just based on what those Spider-Man No Way Home writers are saying about Marvel adamantly being against bringing versions of Iron Man back on screen, I do not believe any of the Tom Cruise Iron Man rumors to be true. And most of the leaks that you've probably seen circulating around social media are just fan edits and photoshops. It's not like with the Andrew Garfield Photoshop situation where you're not sure if it's true or not, and Andrew Garfield himself is like, it's a Photoshop. But clearly seeing the movie, we know that it was actually a scene during the film. Like, nope, this is definitely real. The scene of him that leaked out was when they were on the Statue of Liberty, and it was him and Tom Holland's Spider-Man talking to Tobey Maguire's Spider-Man about his organic web shooters. There were a lot of other deleted scenes that the writers from Spider-Man No Way Home talked about. I'll do more videos about that when they actually release some of those deleted scenes later this month when the movie hits digital. I do think all these Doctor Strange 2 X-Men cameo scenes are legit. There was some official concept art of the movie that did get released featuring what looks like a version of Patrick Stewart's Professor X in a floating wheelchair designed to look exactly like the one he uses in X-Men the Animated Series. Everyone's playing the theme song in their head right now. I even put it at the end of a lot of my videos. This scene just depicts a version of Doctor Strange being brought before him for questioning inside a very tech-heavy room by Ultron bots, who seem like they're being commanded by this version of Professor X. Now, Patrick Stewart claimed that a while ago he had meetings with Marvel about coming back for a version of Professor X in new MCU movies, but declined because he was so happy with the way that his character went out during the Logan Wolverine movie. So this concept art scene of him in Doctor Strange 2 might wind up being very different in the theatrical cut, if they didn't get rid of it completely. Which does happen sometimes. Like, you'll see concept art for really cool scenes that just either get deleted during the filming process or they don't make it past the concept phase. Like all the scenes of America Chavez in Spider-Man No Way Home. Like, you can see her clearly, they planned to put her in the movie initially. Originally, they were going to release Doctor Strange 2 first. She was going to show up for the first time in that. Like, this is her in the trailer, seeing her in the MCU for the first time. Then she was going to show up in Spider-Man No Way Home after that and help Spider-Man with his problem. But because they wound up releasing Spider-Man first, they just got rid of all of her scenes. It sounds like a lot of these X-Men cameo scenes that we're going to get in Doctor Strange 2 are related to this big multiverse Illuminati team. There was also some concept art that leaked out of Professor X fighting a version of Scarlet Witch, but she wasn't wearing her new costume and she looked a little bit different. So it could have been a Scarlet Witch from another universe. And I know that raises a whole bunch of questions because Scarlet Witch is supposed to be a Nexus being and there's only supposed to be one of her in the entire multiverse. But it sounds like they might be changing that for the MCU. They kind of started to set that concept up during Wandavision with all the Nexus Easter eggs. Originally, Doctor Strange was going to be the doctor she sees in this fake commercial during this episode, giving her the prescription. So they'll answer a lot of those questions during the movie. And if Marvel is hardcore against bringing versions of Iron Man back, when we have the Iron Man Wars episodes and the Ironheart episodes, which are very connected to the Iron Man mythos in the comics, it sounds like they'll just use the Spider-Man No Way Home method for invoking Iron Man the character. Like lots of references to Stark Industries, maybe some Tony Stark Iron Man name drops, but that's probably it. Like, do not expect Tony Stark to actually show up during Armor Wars. If Robert Downey Jr. does wind up coming back, or a version of Iron Man from the multiverse does wind up showing up in a future movie, early prediction, it'll be Avengers Secret Wars. So let me know in the comments, when do you actually think we'll see a version of Iron Man or an alternate universe Iron Man show up on screen? Or even Robert Downey Jr. playing a multiverse version of another character, like a version of Tony Stark, Sorcerer Supreme from another universe. They kind of did a version of that during Avengers Infinity War, but it turned into a big deleted scene, so hopefully they'll pay that off at some point too. Don't worry, if we see references and Easter eggs for Iron Man, I will point them out in my breakdown videos. But an Easter egg and a reference isn't the same thing as a full-blown cameo scene. Big reminder, my Star Wars Book of Boba Fett Episode 6 video will post next. Be sure to enable alerts for my channel so you don't miss that. In related Marvel news, click here for that Marvel Secret Invasion first look video, and click here for my Eternals Thanos alternate ending video and Easter eggs. Thank you so much for watching, everyone stay safe, and I'll see you guys in the next one.